Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today's special guest began his career in academia by getting his bachelor's in mathematics from Queens College, went on to get both his master's and PhD from Stanford University in economics, after which he became a member of the economics facility at another OSU, Ohio State, for 30 years, where he also began his life as an administrator, where he was executive vice president and provost. Then the good doctor joined us here at the one true OSU in 2003, where he became president of our university. During his tenure of the last 12 years, our guest today has launched a Marine Studies Institute, has gained OSU international recognition as a public research university, increased enrollment to over 30,000 students, making OSU the largest public university, endowing 79 new faculty positions while creating more than 600 new scholarships and fellowship funds for 32,000 students. I could go on, but I would spend the rest of our time listing the man's achievements, ladies and gentlemen, as well as the good people out there in Radio Land. Help me to welcome to the airwaves of KBVR Corvallis, Oregon State President Ed Ray.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's good to be here with you and your colleagues.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the airwaves today, sir. We are all honored that you are here.
Thank you.
So, like we mentioned a little bit earlier, you were part of the economics department at Ohio State for 30 years. What about Oregon made you want to not only work here, but live here?
Well, actually, I had been on the West Coast because I went to Stanford University for my master's and PhD work. I grew up in New York City, and I met my wife at Stanford, and then you got to get a job. So I ended up in the Midwest at Ohio State. I actually was there 33 years. I started out as an assistant professor, and one thing led to another, and then I ended up as executive vice president and provost there. What got me to come here, quite frankly, was that the university had started a search for a president in 2003, and the search firm contacted me and asked me if I would be willing to talk to the representative from the firm and then later to come out here. So actually the first time I ever visited Oregon was when I came out here to meet with the search committee, and you know, it just got better and better and better. You know, you hear these stories about you peel back the onion layer by layer and layer, and the more and more I learned about Oregon State, the more I was just very impressed and very excited about the possibility of coming here. When I first got here, friends from Ohio would write, and they'd say, you know, what's it like in Oregon? There are a lot of people who don't know where Oregon is. Anyway, so they would write and say, how are things in Oregon? And I would say a word that I never would have used before. I'd say, they have vistas here. Everywhere I look, there are vistas. You know, there are mountain ranges and forests, and Ohio's very flat. Yeah. There are not a lot of vistas. So we came here and we settled down. We had already started looking at places that we might want to retire to. We would take a vacation. One time we went to New Mexico. We went to several different places. And literally, my late wife, Beth, people would ask her how she liked it here. And she would say, we found it. Yeah, this is where we want to be, and I still feel very much that way. And she loved it here. So
I can tell you without a doubt, the first time I toured Oregon State University, I definitely felt it while walking around this campus. So I'm really glad you found your way here and found your way to our studio. So you've been in Corvallis for about 12 years now, but you also went to university in Queens. So I don't think it's beyond me to say that you know a good slice of pizza when you see one. So
oh yeah.
What's your favorite spot to go grab a slice here in Corvallis, Oregon?
Well, I think American Dream is probably where I've gone most often to get pizza or met people to have pizza, but I haven't met a lot of pizzas I didn't like. I think I'm not the vegetarian type, so meat is always good, but I really like pizza. And New York's, they tended to have the thin crust. I like that, but I also like the thick crust, so I'm not crazy about the cheese in the middle of the crust. That's kind of overkill, but yeah, a good pizza is something to be relished. I had a friend in college. He passed away a few years ago, but when we were in college, we'd finish studying at night, and we would sort of go on a long walk, and on our walk, we would stop at the we'd go to the Italian restaurant first and get a slice of pizza and we would keep walking while we were eating the pizza. And then we would go to White Castle, and they were about 8 cents a piece at the time, so we'd have maybe a dozen White Castle hamburgers. I don't recommend that to you or any other students. And then we would go to Carvel for ice cream. And the last stop on the way home was the Jewish deli to get a knish. So it was a memorable experience.
I mean, you're speaking right to the college students. You're going right for the stomach. You know what the students are looking for. So we actually opened up some of our questions to the OSU student body using Twitter. So we had some of them tweet at us using the hashtag #RayOnTheRadio. So at OSU Prism actually asked us, Ed, do you have any creative outlets such as drawing or poetry?
Well, I actually do love listening to music. I think most of my music listening now is while I'm driving somewhere on XM radio. Fortunately, I can go back to the 40s or the 60s or the 80s or classical or jazz and blues, whatever. So that's you are living in a privileged age where you can get all kinds of music on demand in a way that wasn't possible when I was younger. I like to read. I jogged most of my adult life. Now it's when I can, I'll go out and thump around the block. I was pretty serious about it. It's a good thing I got old, so I had to stop. But I ran my first marathon when I was 50.
Wow.
And then I kept doing it every year to try to stay in shape. I've done 4 Portland marathons. I've done 13 overall, but I think I'm done. So I always loved sports growing up, too. Obviously, you don't grow up in the streets of New York and not play a lot of basketball. So we used to do a traveling show. We would go to Brownsville and Harlem and Coney Island and other places. And, you know, it's winners ball out and winners stay. So you'd go there and there'd be 10 teams and you'd rotate in and out and you'd lose in 5 minutes and wait another hour to play another 5 minutes, that kind of thing. So I love sports growing up, so I always was very active.
You're speaking my language, Ed. I grew up playing high school basketball. What position did you run while you were playing the courts?
Well, it's I always thought of myself as the go-to guy.
Okay.
I played point guard a lot, but the go-to guy, and I was communicated with a friend that I've known since I was 12, and I told him, I said, you know, it took me a long time to realize I thought of myself as the guy who wanted the ball with the game on the line. And it took me many years to realize that I was the only one who wanted me to have the ball with the game on the line. And he wrote back to me, he said, yeah, I was actually hoping you would throw me a pass down the lane wide open. So,
well, you spoke about how you really enjoy listening to music through the XM station. So at RoseFitz_K asked, do you play any instruments? And if so, have you ever been in a band?
Well, you know, I never got further than the tonette.
Okay.
So I don't think that actually may qualify as a serious instrument. I was of the age that when I was the age of many of our students, really younger, everybody was in a singing group.
Okay.
So I was in a singing group. We used to sing at school dances and stuff like that, and we thought we were hot stuff, and nobody ever took us terribly seriously. One of the early lessons I learned in life is people are very kind if you're singing for free, but if you want to get paid for it, they're a lot more critical.
Yeah, it's probably one of those true statements that any up-and-coming artist could take to heart, is that people will love you if you perform for free, but once you start asking for money, they're like, you know, maybe we can get someone else.
Yeah, for that price, maybe we could do better.
Yeah. So here at KBVR-FM, we're all about the music. Actually, regularly scheduled programming during this time is our live music show. So we're curious to know, what was your first concert that you ever went to?
I'm not sure. I think the first one I ever went to was either Simon and Garfunkel in Central Park or Barbra Streisand in Central Park. I don't remember which one came first.
Wow, as first concerts go, that's pretty good.
I was spoiled growing up. I mean, I thought everyone went to Simon and Garfunkel concerts and, you know, got to see Shakespeare in the Park with George C. Scott and other really incredible talents. So I was very privileged.
Yeah, and so
in that sense.
I mean, of course,
and it was all free.
You grew up in an incredible age of music, and at Fabe Gleck from Twitter wants to know, what were some of the most popular songs when you were our age, college age, sort of?
Well, I was in college and in graduate school, which is kind of an extension of college in so many ways, because so many of the patterns you're in are pretty much the same. But I went through that whole period of, certainly the Beatles and, Blood, Sweat, and Tears in Chicago, and Creedence Clearwater Revival, and Janis Joplin, and later Janis Ian, and Judy Collins, and just so many others. I mean, it was a wonderful, wonderful time. The Beatles, obviously. Yeah.
I mean, our engineer at the station is probably one of the biggest Beatle fans you've ever met. You can walk into his office.
I brought some Beatle records.
Really? We brought some Beatle records. Well, I think we're going to take a quick break and throw it back over to the music. We'll be back in just a moment. We're going to throw you a little bit more of a curveball when we come back,
Sure.
Ed. All right?
Okay.
You've been tuned into 88.7 KBVR Corvallis. We'll be back in just a moment with OSU President Ed Ray. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got OSU President Ed Ray in the booth with us here at KBVR Corvallis. I am your host, Sean Fox. Ed, how are you doing this afternoon?
Really good. It's great to be here.
It's excellent. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here. This is actually your first time back on the airwaves at KBVR, I think since we were in Snell. Isn't that correct?
Absolutely. In fact, I did bring CDs with me today, but when the first time I was on, whoever was doing the radio show asked me to bring some of the things I like. So I brought some 78 RPMs. I brought some 8-track tapes.
There we go.
And I brought some CDs, and I never saw anyone work so hard in my life, because he was trying to switch from one to the other to play tunes every once in a while. So this time my eldest child took virtually all of my records and tapes. She runs a couple of dance studios in Columbus, Ohio. She grew up there, and I tell people any residual fame I have in Columbus, Ohio is as Miss Stephanie's dad. So she runs a couple of dance studios. So she took all that music and I think, redid it so she could do CDs and stuff, because they're always needing songs and things for dance routines for the little kids and whatnot. So I'm reduced now to CDs, but I was surprised how many I had. I went looking this morning. You had said bring several. I think I brought about 10 instead of the 50 I could have brought.
Yeah, you came in and you handed us a bag full of CDs, and then our music director's like, okay, I'm going to take these and I'm going to look through everything. So, I mean, we really appreciate you bringing in those CDs.
Oh, happy to do it.
But going back to Queens College, actually, we had at Miranda Cromwell asked on Twitter, what was one opportunity you wish you had taken instead of passing up on as an undergrad?
I really, I had a wonderful time as an undergraduate. I ended up majoring in math. We could spend too long talking about that. I didn't declare my major till my senior year in college, when I realized that the only way I could graduate in 4 years was if I had a major. And so I declared for math, but I actually got a minor in economics, which I really liked and did graduate work in, and I had a minor in theater. So I performed and did some of the technical work on 5 or 6 plays in my junior and senior years. So I had a great time.
So with that minor in theater, what did you actually perform in? What were some of the plays you put on?
Well, probably the most challenging was there's a play called Two for the Seesaw.
Okay.
And it's a 2-person, 3-act play, and we did it in the Round out at Kennedy Airport. Before it was Kennedy, it was called Idlewild. And it was an old Air France hangar, and we were called the Idlewild Players.
Wow. That's got a catchy name.
That was the most demanding, but some of the others were fun. I was the Griffin in Alice in Wonderland.
Oh, wow.
The half bird, half lion or whatever, with a Cockney accent. Hello, mate. How are you?
Oh, wow. That sounds like an absolute blast.
It was great.
So we've got a couple of curveballs coming from you from the Twitter sphere. So at Sweet Pea wants to know, are there any plans for new parking on campus, such as a secondary parking structure on the north end?
We've actually talked about where we would put a second parking garage, and I think that's going to be clearer as we come forward with the next intergovernment agreement with the city on how we're going to manage the future in terms of housing, student population, traffic congestion. I don't know if it'll be another parking lot. We actually now have an agreement with the city that any new construction we do, depending on its square footage, a certain number of parking spaces are required within a reasonable distance of any new buildings that we create. So the parking spaces are going to stop shrinking to the extent they have at all. I don't think they really have. We've tended to find offset parking, but there'll be more parking over time. We're now at about 25.5 in terms of resident enrollment here, and we've pretty much agreed to cap it not to go above 28 and not to get there for another 5 or 10 years and then to stay there. And our Board of Trustees is on board with that, you want to right-size the university relative to the community that you're in. You don't want to overwhelm the area. We've had some challenges with fast growth in the past, but we're growing at about 150, 200 students a year. That's manageable. And once we get a sensible plan for creating new residence halls as part of the next 10-year plan for the university, I think we'll be able to make some headway on some of the problems that people find themselves facing now.
So like you were talking about with the 10-year plan of the future, so looking towards the future of Oregon State, what are some of your big plans for the future of our university? Well,
I actually got asked by the Board of Trustees last spring if I would stay on for another 5 years. And to be honest, I sort of asked myself the so what question. Like, so what if you retire now? So what if you retire in 5 years? How's it going to make a dime's worth of difference? And the one thing that we have really struggled with for the last dozen years is closing the achievement gaps in terms of persistence and graduation of different groups of students, particularly students of color, first-generation students, Pell eligible students. So I really want to make sure we zero in on doing a much better job raising those persistence and graduation rates. I go around telling people our most important contribution to the future is our graduates. We're not graduating enough people, so I'm hoping we can do a lot better job. You've heard people talk about the debt issue, and you're living it too, what it costs to go to school, the debt you might graduate with. Well, think about the ones who don't graduate and have $25,000 or $50,000 in debt. They have no path to get out from under all of that. So it's really critical that we try to manage costs and not have students graduate with huge debts. But it's really important that we do everything we can to see that they graduate.
So kind of taking it back into, you were talking about specific groups of students, so we're going to focus in on the NMC majors. From @Hutchinson15 asks, NMC majors struggle to have enough classes for their students due to a lack of faculty. What can be done to help that?
Hire more faculty.
That seems like a pretty straightforward answer.
Well, I think there is a school head, and there is a dean, and there is a provost, and monies do move around depending on enrollment pressures and so forth. We're actually adding any 1 year 30 to 40 net new tenure track faculty. I think we're probably one of the only universities in this country that has had the size of the tenured faculty base grow in the last 5 years. And we're going to stay on that because we know that there are shortages in some areas. But, the dean has to, with colleagues, sort of make the case what resources they need and how they're going to be used. And provost is listening. So he's not listening right now. He's in Pakistan.
Oh, wow.
But generally, he's listening to the dean. So.
All right. So you spoke on the matter of resources. @Alex J. Hugan on Twitter wants to know, President Ed Ray, how do you see OSU improving sustainability measures on campus in the near future?
Well, this is it's a continuing struggle. I don't know how many of your listeners know Brandon Trelstad, but he's kind of our sustainability guy. And we signed on to the climate promise 4 or 5 years ago, and the idea is to try to get as close to a net zero carbon footprint by 2025, I think. And I spent most of a year probably thinking about that, because I'm not into feel-good things. You know, it was only, is there any credible way we can do this? And quite frankly, the answer right now is not without carbon offsets. So I know the students historically have put money into, reforestation efforts as a kind of carbon offset, as a way of getting you to zero, even as you produce carbon emissions. And we're constantly having conversations and working on ways to figure out how we can become more carbon neutral. The other thing, though, that people don't talk about, we are a land, sea, space, and sun grant university. We have people doing amazing work with wind, with solar, with wave energy, with even small modular nuclear reactors. We have a lot of people working on renewable fuel alternatives to carbon-based fuels. So it's not just that as a user or a customer we're trying to be more mindful and responsible. We're helping, hopefully, to find some of the solutions going forward to help all of us substitute away from fossil fuels.
And I mean, that's just an excellent way of going forward. We're a university that is known as a research institute, and you helped to bring us into the international recognition for that as a public university. So on behalf of the rest of the OSU students, let me thank you on that front. But you've also helped to raise $1.14 billion to allow OSU to really, really flourish in your time here. You've renovated and built 28 new buildings. We're currently inside of one of them on the 4th floor of the Student Experience Center here on KBVR Corvallis. You've done impeccable things for this university, Ed. And what I'd like to know is what legacy would you like to leave here at Oregon State University when that day comes where you decide, I think it is time for me to step back and take some time and retire?
Well, I'd like people to be able to say we eliminated the achievement gaps and we're graduating students at a much higher rate, because they're the biggest contribution I or anyone else here makes to the future. So that has been elusive, but that's what I'm focused on. All the rest is great, but all the rest is in the service of being able to have graduates who are, and I've said this, who can compete against anyone, anywhere, anytime, and in their civic and social lives really give service to others. I think it's part of our ethos that there is a sense of a mission beyond ourselves here, that we're supposed to make the world a better place. We're supposed to help people who need to be able to count on us to help them. And I hope all of our graduates have that sense. They're hungry to be successful and achieve what they can, but they also care about other people and making this world a better place.
I think that's a very, very noble legacy to want to leave behind, sir. And I would really like to take time to thank you on behalf of all of us here at the Orange Media Network, from KBVR-FM to KBVR-TV, Beaver's Digest, Prism, and Daily Barometer, for coming out here and sitting down with us here in the radio station. We really appreciate you coming on the air this day. And I think we're going to throw it back over to some music.
Good, thank you. I'd love to come back and make sure you play some of that music.
We will have you back on in a heartbeat, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been President Ed Ray of Oregon State University. We're going to throw it right back over to some music. Keep it here on 88.7 KBVR